Testing. Let's call the meeting to order. At four. Um,
Megan Richards.
No new chair yet. Marianne Thunder.
Teresa Coleman.
that means, for that.
Yes.
Okay. We now have time for oral presentation. Oral has dialed in, we have one dialed in. No? Any, oral communication?
I haven't something to mention, but it could come later under committee town operation.
I would appreciate that, but okay. Thank you.
Okay, so, my notes were that Peter's draft language was the guidance for trails, private trails, but I could have written it down. I just want clarification.
Please speak up. Can't hear you in the audience.
Can you hear now?
Is your microphone doing? Well,
That's better.
it wasn't on.
Better? Can you hear me?
Take the other one. Yeah, try another. Just go to the next one.
Is that better? Yeah, that's much better. Hi, Peter. Sorry about that. Yeah, that was not a good microphone. So we are still looking at the minutes. And I just had a question about the drafting the appropriate language. Was that regarding Detrichia?
So what I wrote in the minutes was this was under the Detrichia on private property discussion,
Okay,
and that Dieter was going to craft some draft language for consideration at our next meeting.
So that the ASCC is getting involved. It has nothing to do with trails. I
yeah,
don't know.
okay, so my notes were wrong. Good.
You wrote it completely correctly.
So any other changes to the minutes?
Nope. Well, I move to accept the minutes as is. Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
I have to abstain. I was absent.
Mhm.
Okay, we can move on to site permits. I saw the 857 Westridge. I haven't looked at the report yet, but that you submitted that this morning or yesterday?
Yesterday.
Yeah. Was there anything notable?
We recommended some control of the Trichia and Stipa tenuissima that were from the older landscape and requested that the fence line be adjusted to preserve wildlife corridors. So
Are
two
these going to every committee member? Did I just not see it?
They went
No,
straight to,
the package, the package goes to everybody. So the way, when I get one, I send it to everybody and I say, you know, such and such is up. But everybody has the opportunity to look at each of the packages.
So where do I look for that?
I would,
it was sent
Ye-
out in early November
I
and
just
we
didn't see it.
responded
Okay.
2 days ago, I think.
but, so there's nothing controversial in particular.
I don't think so. no.
And 302 Portola Road, Teresa took a look at that, maybe today. Did you get there today?
Yes, so the
Sorry.
subcommittee visited the site today. I will try to have the report done before I go out of town on Friday. And there was nothing controversial there. We will be making some recommendations for consideration of some additional cedars to be removed and a stone pine to be removed,
Excellent.
should they choose to do so. We
Good.
would support that. And planting at least one. I think we decided live oak, coast live oak, we would ask them to consider planting one.
Good.
Because they are removing it, my drone, and so
Right. So one other thing which really falls more into trees came up after this, and that is at Corte Madera School. There are 5, I believe they're all Valley Oaks that are at the end of their life. Some of you may have seen a message from the school district saying that they're going to have to remove these 5 trees because and they've had an arborist look at them. One limb broke off and smashed a lunch table. Fortunately, nobody was there, nobody was hurt, but these trees are all hollowed out and at the end of their lives. And so unfortunately, they're going to have to move all 5 of them. But they are going to replace them with probably oaks. And they're going to do that over this holiday because they're an immediate danger. They are an immediate danger. Okay. Oversight of town-owned properties. I don't think that we have any updates on any of these right now. And I already mentioned under committee town cooperation that the Corte Madera School oak trees are coming out.
the only update I would make, although it's not listed here, the town has not yet done any silt removal on the shaded trail. It has not happened.
Okay.
Catherine, I have a question related to oak trees. Is that,
Excellent.
were there communications that came to the Conservation Committee about those?
I was notified and Yogi was notified, I think because of the Frog Pond connection and his relationship with the school. So he and I went and looked at them together with the facilities person.
So were we asked to review and comment?
No,
Okay.
we were not asked to review or opine. We were just told that this is what was gonna happen.
Catherine,
Yes?
it's Dana. Can I speak to that a little bit? Just, I know you haven't taken communications on this, but I have a comment.
Go ahead.
I think it's very important for Conservation Committee to look at the arborist report. I read it. I don't feel that there's conclusive evidence that 5 trees are hollowed out. And a tree surgeon, when they are kind of pressed to be hired to take something down, they have to, they have their liability issues. And they kind of say what needs to be said. But I think it needs to have a really good look. It's a shame to take down all these huge valley oaks on that property. So, I'd love to see you guys take another look. And I just had another comment on your Detrichia situation I've been waiting to bring this up at ASCC for a long time. That yes, that you can't get a final or a permit if your property is infested with Detrichia. So I think it would be good for you guys to know that we're on the same page there. Thank you.
I said I would write this, and I will, but I do not have it tonight.
Okay,
Now, let me
next
make
week is great. I mean, next
com-
month.
A comment on these oaks. It would seem highly unlikely to me that 5 oaks in the same area all are hollowed out. But we find them here and there, but I don't know how far this has gone, but I think-
Yeah, I'm not sure how I feel about.
Actually, Catherine, I was thinking too, it is highly unlikely that 5 oak trees are dying at the same time. And you and Yogi, Dieter is we have actually 3 people who are really experienced.
I'd be happy to schedule another visit.
Maybe we should have another,
Okay.
yeah.
I'm happy
Because
to do
that sets a precedent when the school says, whoa, kids are dying. I understand where they're coming from. I fully understand. But I agree with Dana that we should also do due diligence.
Okay. Totally agree.
Do you know who the arborist is?
I do not know, but
You see,
I
that's
do, and I have the report. I'll send it to Catherine. And
great.
Catherine, you can then send it to everyone else. I also read the report. I don't find it convincing on 5 trees, maybe 1.
So I have a question. Does this committee have any role in a decision like this? Does the town even have jurisdiction over a school property? No.
Well, I think that's a really good question, and I think that the liability is gonna outweigh everything. The liability issue, but I'm happy to have other people, Dieter and Marianne, take a look at them.
I also think that, liability and children clearly, I understand, but still, we should do our due diligence.
Okay, I
Yeah.
will contact him tomorrow. His name is Travis. I will contact him tomorrow and request another site visit.
But again, if we don't have any jurisdiction, then I'm not disagreeing with, we are a resource for the town to utilize, but if we really don't have any jurisdiction, period, does it make sense for us to go back and have another visit?
I
I don't know. I'm
That's
just
a good
asking.
question, and it reminds me that it wasn't actually a tree request. It was one of the giant limbs is a granary for acorn woodpeckers, a very heavily active granary. And so what they asked us is to opine on whether or not leaving a chunk of the tree in a place that was still accessible would be something that would be a habitat friendly thing to do to preserve this granary at some level. So that's what pulled me and Yogi in. And it actually wasn't about specifically the trees. It was more about that granary limb. So that doesn't mean that it's not worth going to look at them again.
But if they were considering leaving the limb, they would be leaving the tree because the limb can't sit by itself.
No, the like a big chunk of the tree, like a half of the tree would be cut off and moved
On the ground.
on and left on the ground with that granary branch sticking up, so it was still kind of accessible. Judy had a bird expert weigh in on this, and they thought that was likely to be a good solution. So that's what we were called in for, was for that aspect of it.
Once the granary is on the ground, I think it's this way.
Even if the branch is sticking up.
If the granary, that branch is cut off and sits on the ground, you can forget it. I've never seen any on the ground.
Right, so
Like the high places.
I would draw this on the board, but
I have
but
two granary trees on the property and it's at the top where they are.
yeah, no, it's absolutely true. So that was why the idea was to take a big enough piece that had a couple other limbs that could support the granary limb being up in the air, because I think that's right. I think if it was on the ground, it would be so I don't know. And it may be a red herring completely, this granary thing. If yeah, so I think we still haven't decided whether we want to send us another couple people to look at it.
I would be
Um,
very interested in at least seeing the arborist report and in voicing our concern about removing these
I
five
think that
trees.
is a valid thing to do.
And
So,
expressing that if it hasn't been done, that there should be a tree risk assessment performed. It's a very specific procedure that helps to take some of the feelings out of assessing the risk of a tree failing.
okay, so Dana is gonna send me the tree report and I will send that to everybody. But then we will get a team of couple people to go and read through the report and then to look at the trees.
And Catherine, there's also, this sounds like process issue. Seems there was a report, the town must have, I assume the town hasn't seen it either.
I don't think so.
That would be interesting to find out.
But again, if it's on a school site, I know from other committees, I've heard discussion about that when it's on a school property, the town has zip.
But they have issues when but
Right.
the town gives permits, it gives the building permit.
It's a different process for schools.
A totally different process.
We didn't comment on the land.
Ah.
Any of that. 'Cause we don't have any.
But we could be helping. We could
So-
Yeah,
see it
and
as
it's
a
great that they-
helping.
No, that,
Yeah.
and that is important, and
Yeah.
that's something that we do really well,
Yeah.
is helping. So I'm happy to set that up. Who wants to?
Now
You,
this
Dieter, and
raises a question. Why were we then called in to look at?
For the granary, dear, for the granary.
No,
the
no,
granary,
th-
she
th-
said.
This was still in preparation for the new construction about maybe 2 years ago or 2.5. We were called in to decide whether certain trees can be removed. So they have a different kind of approach from Alpine Road into the property. Why were we called?
That's a good question.
So the reason why is because the initial tree failure hadn't happened yet.
No,
and
no,
it-
he's talking historically. Historically, prior to the new construction getting underway, there was a request. I'm paraphrasing because I don't know. I'm making this up. But if I understand correctly, Dieter, what you're saying is that there was a request made of conservation to go and make an assessment on some trees that were proposed for removal as part of the construction. I don't know what the
I was
deal
there
is
and
with
I-
the schools.
I
don't know.
believe that's because they were in the right of way. So
Yeah,
there were
they were in the
town-owned
right of
trees that
way.
were being
That
removed.
would make sense.
These are not in the right of way.
Well, one's in the parking lot and the rest are scattered around
In between the buildings, right?
between the buildings.
Well, let's look at them with our experts and give
Okay.
some,
Marianne, would you like to join that
I don't
group?
have to
Okay.
if maybe.
We'll get Dieter and Megan. Okay,
I
perfect.
would, cede to Megan and to Nona.
Okay. Okay, so we are still number B2, update on advice to the ASCC on Detrichia is coming next time. What wildfire prep committee update, and just because there's also a discussion on the joint subcommittee, I included the copy of that whole letter that you guys sent in, but I know that just so that it was on the record. And that was in the minutes as, I think it's Appendix A.
So shall I report on wildfire preparedness? Okay. So the last meeting of wildfire preparedness was on the 15th, and the whole meeting was devoted to a presentation by Kim Giuliacci, the new fire marshal, about the 2303, the defensible space ordinance, the fuel reduction. She gave, I thought, a very thorough presentation and covered aspects like, what does zone 0 really mean? What will the inspections be like? What is the mechanism for informing you of the results of the inspection? How to schedule an inspection before the inspectors come. So if you actually want to be there and learn what they're doing. There was time for a lot of questions from the audience, and they ranged from, this is really going to change the town that we live in and make it sort of unrecognizable and not very wildlife friendly, to I'm facing the loss of fire insurance on my house and I really want to see these things happen. So it was really, I thought, across the board. Probably more feedback in terms of how would this really affect me? What about the cost of all of this work? Dudley Carson asked, can we distinguish, sort of detailed questions. Can we distinguish between evergreen trees and oaks when we talk about limbing up trees and canopies and things like that? So it was all recorded and it was really interesting, I thought. Kim was, I would say she listened well, but she was very firm that the guidelines are really written to protect people's property and to protect firefighters when they're trying to protect us from fire. So she was very firm on that. So a couple things that came out of it in addition is that there's a lot of interest in the town, it seems to me, in finding out sort of how to get more information and what this really looks like. And so the two things that were discussed, one was that because the fire department is going to be taking pictures of properties that are attached to the report so that you see what's really a violation, And then they have to go back and re-inspect it, or they have to at least confirm that it has been fixed. There's a lot of potential information on before and after kinds of things that might be useful to people. The other thing that came up was the possibility that if you're going to schedule an inspection at your property, you might want to invite all your neighbors or other people so that everyone can kind of hear the explanation live. So I thought it was good. She will take the recording and use that for all of the feedback from the town. And then will be another presentation and feedback session. I think it's going to be January 15th. It's a special meeting that'll be held here. Oh, and I did bring up the idea that we have discussed in the past, that there is this potential for sort of perverse outcomes. If you get rid of all of the understory and then you bring in Trichia and thistles and things like that as invasives, then you're actually making things worse rather
Right.
than better. And so I think there was, she got that message, I think. On that, and we also have a report, but where is it?
It's after the open space committee, which is probably,
Oh,
I'm not
okay.
even sure if there was.
Okay, yeah, the only update from open space is that there was, at the last meeting, we had discussion of hawthorns, basically along the lines that were just discussed earlier about the proposal to move the trail and other things, and that the open space committee is in general support of that. And the other was that the joint subcommittee, they're separate. Do you want me to report on that now? Because that's the next item, I guess. The joint subcommittee between open space and conservation well, you have the report, and that the issue was originally that because there isn't enough money in the budget this year to put in to have the same budget for maintenance on open space as last year, the council suggested there were sort of two opinions on the council. One was to reduce the amount, and the other was to consider actually using the same amount as last year, but that would require some kind of input from open space committee potentially, because it would be coming out of the open space fund. And the joint subcommittee, which is, you all have the report, was that we shouldn't go beyond the 10% take from the open space fund allotment from
This is the UTI or
Yeah.
whatever.
um,
Did you say 10%?
yeah, so they were going to take 10%, and so it didn't so it would come back to this committee. And I think Catherine, maybe you have already talked to them about it.
Not specifically.
Okay, well, what needs to happen then is that since open space has decided that there's not really enough information to know what taking extra funds would be used for, and that the whole budget process in the town is still in a bit of chaos, as I understand it, that there's no point in taking more out of the open space fund this year, but rather to try and get the finances on a firmer footing, and also to try and increase the revenue on the open space fund. That those seem really critical, and if we do that, then the whole question about where the money should come from for maintenance is a slightly different question. So the issue for this year is for this committee to work with the Public Works Director or with Justin to talk about specific priorities, if we have any, within that 40,000.
And
The
is,
joint subcommittee, is that what you're referring when you said this committee?
The
Okay.
joint
So
subcommittee.
the
felt that way.
issue is the objective is for the joint subcommittee to work with Public Works.
No, actually for this committee, for conservation to do what it has in the past. So the joint subcommittee was really about whether to go for 94,000 as there was last year for open space maintenance, or to stay within what the council had suggested. And so in the past, we have sort of made recommendations to Public Works on what should be included in maintenance. in a given year. Like when to mow, how many weedings to do, when to seed, what to seed.
Right, and I spoke with Howard for quite a while about this, and you're right, I think the financial account, well, just the accounting of this is kind of, it's not, there's no useful historical data. But I did get the sense from Howard that the 44,000 would cover all of the mowings that we requested. But there's no money for additional things like tree removals or things like that, but it will cover the number of mowings that we requested. So that was the part that I was concerned and not quite sure that we had gotten a straight answer. But now I feel like we do.
Okay, and then the other thing going forward on that is that it would be really helpful to know how much each mowing costs and who does it. And that
Yes.
sort of thing. And I think that the town is actually moving in that direction. Our goal was not to sort of criticize anybody on the town staff or any of the process, but rather to say, this is really an opportunity to change because,
Right.
we just don't have enough information.
That's great. So, under the Wildfire Preparedness Committee, back to number 3, I screwed up and didn't include a report from the subcommittee on wildfire preparedness. And I think we can cover it. But that's Megan.
Yeah, I can start it off and feel free to chime in. So we received the revised version of the draft fire ordinance for review. We had previously met and edited another version and had prepared comments. So we took our prepared comments on the old version and reviewed it against the newest version to understand the level of changes and to see where we could replicate some of our prior edits. If anything, I think we had fewer edits on this most current version, and most of them were focused on really dialing in their descriptions of types of vegetation, whether it was hazardous vegetation. We're suggesting adding a definition for approved vegetation that would allow us to reference some of the lists that we've prepared and that the fire marshal has reviewed for fire, quote unquote, fire safe vegetation. Adding some definitions for mulch and for weeds so that we can start to talk about appropriate types of planting in the landscape and maintenance for fire safety that is not.
I think that's really good. Yeah, I think there's some definitions like mulch is really vague. And so that's great. Did you talk to them about, or just remind them of some of the guidance documents that we have in terms of the distance between plants on the slopes?
So the new version includes diagrams with those distances. And so it all lines up with our understanding. And that actually, I think, is a good improvement to the.
Yeah, the diagrams aren't our diagrams,
Right.
which are better. But we did send all of the documents to Don and to Ken so that hopefully they will at least be referenced.
And Kim is now the person.
I believe it's
I think
December, but I don't.
December or January for sure.
January.
Yeah.
So
They
they're
were doing a
overlapping.
Very careful handoff, it seems.
Very nice.
I think the one of the key takeaways I have taken away is that there are obviously new data about mulch and how much it burns in the 0 to 5 zone. And the way it's going to happen is, I think, correct me if I'm interpreting wrong, that in the 0 to 5 zone, there's certainly no mulch allowed. And it, based on what the fire experts seem to have been finding, there probably will be no vegetation either. There will be probably stones or something. And I think that's my biggest takeaway, and I accept it.
Mhm, mhm.
It's just something to know because, for example, we were out at the Priory today, and they are putting in a new chapel, and in the 0 to 5 zone, they have mulch everywhere. Now, the fire department will tell them that.
But I
Yeah.
don't know what kind of mulch it is. So
What mulch is mulch?
it, well, it could be
The-
stones. The way you were
Yeah,
saying.
anyway, I don't want to keep, it's just something for you to know because it struck me.
The
You know,
current- the-
I think that makes me think that maybe it might be worth putting together just a little document for the website.
It's
of
too early. It's too early.
what
We have to
different-
wait
but-
for the
but
document.
So we can think about it, you know, what kinds of mulch.
No kinds of mulch.
I think-
Rocks are mulch. A lot of, I mean, a lot of people do use rocks as mulch and it can be very effective. But
Anyway, we don't need. to,
yeah,
you
so
know,
no, we don't need to.
We don't need
right.
to discuss.
Just to clarify though, they're encouraging inorganic mulch within 0 to 5, but the current draft ordinance does allow for approved ground covers within 0 to 5.
They haven't actually said what the approved ground covers
No, and
are.
that's where we attempted to add a definition for approved and reference some lists so that we can start to get something defined for that.
That's great.
No dry sticks.
Right, and so we're hoping that some of the documents that we prepared a year or more ago, that they can reference those because they also have the opportunity to review and approve those lists. So there'll hopefully be some overlap.
Okay, and Teresa, I think you said Trails and Paths didn't meet.
No, that meeting was postponed. Yeah, we'll move on.
And then I just put an update on the private trail building guidance because I don't think we had really made any decision about how to approach that.
So the only thing I can report on that at this point is that following the ASCC meeting on 127 Pinyon, the ASCC actually suggested that the landscape architects work with Dana and me on a revised plan, landscape plan. And, you know, I said, we can't recommend landscapers, we can't help you draft plans, but they do have a new plan. And they have reached out to what they're calling the ASCC ad hoc subcommittee to look over the new design. So I assume I can do that. I don't really know. Since Marianne and I were on the committee earlier to review the impact, it probably makes sense for one of us to do that.
I think that's really smart. Yeah, that's kind of like a joint subcommittee, you and Dana.
They called it, or she called it, I don't know who, I guess ASCC said it would be an ad hoc subcommittee.
Okay, good.
Why does it not go back to the ASCC? It's not important enough or?
It will probably eventually. Is that what you're saying? It's just to develop the plan? Is that what you said, Nona?
I think that's the case, but
Ah.
I don't know for sure.
And if I recall correctly, we conservation haven't even been called in to officially look at the plans for that site yet.
Right, the only
That
review that
this-
we did was a conceptual and the trail had already been built, right? Like-
There isn't much to look other than, remember, we saw the planting. They're doing a swimming pool, so, you know, there isn't much for us, but there is a lot for us where the trails are.
I mean, I should say, I guess, just out of full disclosure, that this property borders Jasper Ridge. And specifically, it borders an area of Jasper Ridge where chaparral has been cut and there will be pile burning in February. So something I sort of share sort of the relationship between the two, but just so everyone knows. They're going to see a lot of fire. It's good, I
Yeah.
guess. Yeah. I mean, it'll be in February, so.
So then, the idea is that, that you and the landscape architect and the other one, Dana, will work through the issues about, the amount of soil that's removed, or
So
is that the idea that you'll create a guidance?
So
or some
they've sent me
ideas?
new plans. I haven't actually had a chance to look at them yet, but then I assume Dana and I will get together and provide feedback. Or
Excellent.
recommendations to this committee or AFCC.
Okay, good, good. Okay, the website subcommittee, I think we need, we need another person to get that going. And I think I've been a little loath to get Carrie involved in it, but I know she said she will. Just because it's been kind of crazy at the town center.
It's too early. The content, if we don't have the content, the town is not going to write any content. So Carrie is too early.
Well, we have a lot of content on the website.
Clarify what, remind me what the
Yeah, so-
website was. You were saying.
So that would be the website, on the town website under departments, I think, there's a committees and conservation committee. And then if you scroll all the way to the bottom, there's a resources section. And that's where our plants list is. That's where the planting on slopes guidance is. There's a bunch of other pieces that are there.
Yeah, I started it because I can never find anything. And that's why, that was the trigger to look at it. What are the general search terms? And if somebody enters those, do they get where we would like them to get? And that is not the case. So that's what I was thinking. And I was wondering, because at the moment it's Catherine and I, and we have done pretty much nothing on it. And I was just wondering if Megan could help us, if you would be prepared to join that subcommittee,
Well,
work with us.
I guess the stuff is there, or at least a lot of stuff is there. So the question is, how are people going to access it?
We have to think. I think what we need to do is we need to sit on a table and think it through strategically, like you do when you design a website. I mean, of course, we're not designing a website, but that's what I think is missing. The strategic, where are we going? Because at the moment we're getting to the sustainability. The best information about conservation I have been able to, with my research, is getting from the sustainability. And it's our stuff, but it's under sustainability.
So we're
that's-
specifically trying to make it easier to find your way to the conservation committee.
Yes, that's the idea. The content is there, but it doesn't help if it's not easily findable.
So that, yeah, so one thing that I've noticed is that if you go into the little search bar up in the upper right-hand corner or if you do, I want to, those things will send you off into
Exactly,
oblivion.
exactly.
But that's something that we don't have any control over. Now, we can give that information to Carrie and she can fix that, maybe.
Yeah,
Uh,
but we have to think it through. I just think we really have to think it through. So that we don't say, well, today we're talking with Carrie about, I don't know, the plant list A, and then 3 months later, we're talking about, I just would like it to be thought through, because nobody has thought this through. I know, I've been on the conservation committee for 20 years. So that's
Way
where I'm
longer than
coming
me.
from.
Yeah, no, you're absolutely right. It is a little catch can in any
Yeah.
case. So, is that something?
I'm happy to
when
join. I
happened?
don't,
Would you be
I
prepared
don't know
to-
if I'll be able to contribute much, but I'll be happy to think it through with you.
Yeah, that's
So
what I'm asking.
realistically, the issue is that when the town redid the website, our former page on the old website, which was pretty basic, but it at least had the things on there like, here's what's recommended to, these are natives that you might want to consider planting. These are things you should probably stick
Content
away.
is- The content is there.
But when they redid the website, those links stopped appearing under conservation. So that's where this whole discussion started eons
Exactly,
ago.
exactly.
And we're still there.
Yeah, that's why don't we, as Megan is prepared, and I'll be happy to reach out and have a date where we have a group and we think it through, the three of us.
Okay.
Because I think it
That's
would
good.
help the residents tremendously.
Good. I
Unless you wanted
couldn't
to
agree
do-
more. Yeah.
No, I don't think so.
No, but one thing that might help is even just having a button on the conservation page of what's new or something like that, so that people get into the habit of coming to the conservation page.
That's a good idea.
That's what I mean with strategic thinking.
Yeah, yeah.
yeah.
Okay. That's a great idea, and no, it is not. I mean,
We can't hear.
oh, sorry.
Oh. She is saying if there is a space where somebody could put in a question, and I think this is a good idea. However, if we have a space where somebody can put in a question, we need to make sure this is being read regularly and responded. So this is a good idea, but again, it has to be thought through what that means.
So there are communication mechanisms for sending information to the town, which will be forwarded.
That's email. That's not website.
now.
Yeah, that's email.
Or PV, yeah.
Yeah, that's completely different. Yeah. Okay, but thank you for the comment because it's something to think about. Yeah.
Okay. No,
No, I don't think so. Not on a website.
I think we can, because of Brown Act stuff. I mean, I'm pretty certain there are a lot of restrictions.
I think, yeah,
It's from, just from stuff I've been hearing recently about who you can reach out to and who you can't, and who has to be copied in things.
yeah, I think it's a website and questions. The website doesn't lend itself that greatly for questions. It's maybe we'll have another mechanism with an email or something to the conservation committee. But that's why I'm saying it's got to be some such strategic
strategic.
thinking.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. I
And
think
it will
that's-
have several levels.
Riding up to the microphone. I think that each committee is supposed to have its own email address.
Yes, we do.
And if that were the case, then it could be linked to somebody's email. And
Yeah,
that
that's
it,
not the
so it
website.
would
Yeah.
be accessible.
Yeah, no, this is good. Yeah. Because this is another thing. I think somewhere on the website are those emails. Do people find those emails. There is an email address for every committee. I am not completely sure if that email address is so easily to find. And that's what we're talking. Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Okay. The next topic is the fence ordinance review, which was something that Marion asked us to include. And there's, I included the fence, the entire fence ordinance just for people's reference.
Yeah. Thank you for doing that. The reason I wanted to bring the fence ordinance to the Conservation Committee to think about fences in Portola Valley and wildlife. The fence ordinance is a very good ordinance. But for quite a while now, the Conservation Committee has been trying with, whenever we got a new build permit, to get wildlife corridors for fencing. And we can ask for wildlife corridors, but there's really no mechanism. And so I was thinking we could kick around the idea, and we won't do this right now, and it's going to be work. Should we formulate something about wildlife corridors, and then if there is interest by the town, could that be incorporated into an updated fence permit? A simple example for is it's mostly in Westridge. We have a house is being torn down. There on 3 sides. There is some existing fence, probably 6 feet, by the neighbor or halfway falling down. And then we usually say, okay, this part was open, and if now the last part gets closed, the deer is being pushed out on Westridge Drive, or is being pushed out Mapache, and then becomes a potential hazard for people running the deer over and having potentially a traffic accident. So this is a bigger topic, and today I just wanted to bring this up and see if there is interest by the committee to take this on and possibly develop an updated, and maybe there is more than a wildlife corridor. There might be other issues. Is there interest to move ahead with that? And if there is, can we build a subcommittee and work on that? So that's why I brought this to the attention today.
The only thing that I'm reminded of is just how hard it is to define what a wildlife corridor is. You know, we can often see it when we're out there looking at the sites, but I think it's really going to be really hard for the town.
Well, if that's hard, then that would be actually an argument for putting in the work and trying to define it. Because if it's hard, then it will never happen.
That's true. We certainly have a subcommittee if people are interested in working on that. No?
Has anyone looked back at the language that we incorporated in our feedback on the ADU? Because I think that we talked about, impediments to wildlife movement and things like that. And I don't remember.
I believe when it comes to ADUs, we have absolutely no say with fences. There is no saying.
Right, but
Right,
none
but I
is
think
just
we-
suggesting that we craft it language, try to have it. We did consider.
Oh, we did.
Might use that as a starting
starting
point for discussion, starting
It's true. We
point,
did that. Yeah.
a platform.
Yeah.
That we
Yeah,
start.
Judy and I worked on that, and we sent
That's a good
a
point.
draft to Laura, and
Nothing happened. I
never heard
assume.
anything back again.
So
So
do
I
you
will-
have that on your computer?
I do.
Could you send this around? We
I
can
can.
look around.
I can do that.
So, I mean, is that something we should, do you think we should look at that, Nona, from a conservation committee or?
I'm not totally clear if it's a fence issue, but I think we should think about it in the context.
Okay.
of it.
So then we should probably have a subcommittee. Who is interested to be on that subcommittee?
I can join you.
Okay. Anybody else? So you, I will, two of us?
I'll do,
Three?
yeah, we can have one meeting and cover two topics.
Okay, okay, okay.
Okay.
And
Good.
thank you for saying that. That's absolutely right. We worked on that. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Okay. So
The other
I-
thing, and then there is a second point I would like to bring up, and that will, I think that ties into the restart, reboot, refresh. In the past, fence applications in the past, not in the last 2 years, fence applications had been actually taken very seriously by the town. And from my recollection, had pretty much gone to the ASCC, and the ASCC went out to see what's happening. And it might be a good idea to bring this up with the new town manager, because a fence application on paper can look absolutely perfect. Totally in the parameters of the fence permit. But then if you go out there, it looks completely different. And not that it's misleading, it's just then there is a hill and there is a creek and what have you.
Yeah, it's very subjective.
And I think nobody in town really wants to end up having 6-foot corridors, property after property, because that's not really what Portola Valley stands for.
Right.
And so as a second step, I would very much like if, and maybe this is something Mary can take on, to bring towards the town, that fence permits is maybe get the priority again they used to have. And generally a fence permit should not be coming on a desk and then somebody signs the piece of paper. They should be looked at, unless it's a real simple 4-footer that's in the front yard or something. Of course, I'm aware that there's an issue. I don't know. I don't want to. No.
Okay.
Can I comment on that, Catherine? Dana?
Yes, Dana, I'm sorry, you had your hand raised.
I also feel I'm sensitive about the fencing issue. I think ASCC should review fences. And as you guys, if you get into this and you think that the fence ordinance needs some work, and I think it does need a little bit of work, I would love to see that be opened up to a committee that had some planning commissioners, ASCC. I mean, I think if we were really going to look at it again, we ought to study it. But right now, the planning department just approved a neighbor's fence that's going right through somebody else's backyard, right close to their swimming pool. It completely affects their feeling of their property. And I think, and it's really sad that we were not involved. These people would then have to appeal. And I think, and I wrote way before ahead of time and said, I think ASCC should look at this. So I feel strongly that fencing needs to be re-emphasized. Thank you.
Thank you, Dana.
Good.
Yep.
So Megan, Marianne and I are gonna be the subcommittee and
We'll start.
yeah,
Yeah.
we will definitely do that.
the comment I would say is that fences should be sent to the ASCC for site inspection. You can quote me.
Yes,
Is that a consensus?
I think we're missing the boat that this is, I'm going to say this, Marianne, I think it's important that we be upfront about the fact that yes, it's true for new fence applications and new fence permits, that it makes total sense. But the other issue in town is the predominance all through town of already existing fences that have already impacted potentially wildlife corridors, et cetera. So it's a two-pronged thing. We really can't do one without the other. That's all I'm trying to say.
No, I think that's an important
That's an
point.
important point. That's a very important point, yeah. So, but for you, I think at the moment, the takeaway is for new applications, and we have to work because the existing is going to be hard. This needs some brain work. Yeah. Yeah. So that I think the idea that somebody that the town, gets a plan with a little fence and then says, oh yeah, the height is okay, da da da, bam, stamp. That's not in the interest of the town.
From the original presentation of the fence ordinance, it was the fence application, the resistance was around it being an animal corridor that they had been documenting for many years.
Resistance that
From the neighbor that didn't want the fence to go up.
And I really think one of the strongest arguments we have is that people need to be aware if they put up another fence, the animals, nobody's shooting animals in Portola Valley. So they live here. And if they are pushed out from it where they're going, then all they can do is they can go on the road. And then where they have to start sharing the road with the cars. And that's not a good idea. Okay.
Okay. Bilingual flyers on invasives.
Yeah, I will be working on that. It's winter, and so I expect to have this ready when what's coming out, the spring thistles or whatever.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, good. Okay, the SOG Blitz summary. So I went to the summary of the 2023 SOG Blitz by Mateo Garboletto. I took detailed notes, but and I'm happy to share them with anybody who wants to read them, but I don't surprised if anybody actually did. But he did say a couple of things that I thought were really important. One is that it is spreading a lot more slowly than they had expected it might. And that in the 15 or so years that they've been doing the study, there have only been 4 or 5 what they call wave years, which is when when there's a large number of oaks that become infected. Those years are typically years that have warm, wet springs because the organism can grow on the bay trees when it's warm, and then the water from the rain splashes it on oak trees. And anyway, so he's predicting that since it's going to be an El Nino year, that there's a likelihood that it may be a warm, wet spring, and he's predicting that maybe a wave year, and that it is a year that people think about treating their most valued trees. And that, so there's 3 elements to treating. And the very first part of that is removing all bays in the vicinity. And as far as I can tell, the previous guidance had been small bays. And I spent quite a bit of time looking for size, and it seems like the big ones also get carry it. But he said anything smaller than 50 centimeters in diameter, which is pretty big. Yeah. So that's a lot of bay trees. So, and he recognizes that it's a huge amount of work. And so he's looking for members of the community that are willing to put in that work of removing their bay trees and treating their oak trees with agrifos and gypsum around the soil. And that they have some data that suggests that that really works. It works to enhance the resistance pathways of the trees. The gypsum is calcium sulfate. It enhances the self-protection pathways. So that's pretty cool. The other cool thing was that bay trees, there's now evidence that bay trees can kind of clear their infection. And that is correlated with drier years, not surprisingly. So, and so drier years, flatter terrain, and warmer temperatures. So I guess, you know, you can, I'm not sure what to do with that information, but there were also his website you can get to by doing SOD Blitz, Sod Blitz, not Soda Blitz, Sod Blitz. You have links to all of his tools, including a new website designed for arborists to help them diagnose SOD. So it was pretty interesting. I'm really glad I went. They're doing great work, and yeah, no.
So I downloaded the data for this year and there were no positives in Portola Valley.
Really?
And no positives in Jasper. We've tested since 2012, always the same trees. 37 trees were all negative this year, bay trees.
And they had been positive before, some of them?
So what has happened over the years is that because we test the same effect trees, we do know that some trees have tested positive in some years and negative in other years. And we've talked to Mateo about it, and it does seem to be, his explanation is that they can clear the infection or it doesn't spread to all of the leaves. So you might be sampling symptomatic leaves, but we don't have that. Because you only sample symptomatic leaves.
Right.
Anyway, yeah. Good that they have a website for arborists now.
Yeah, that includes all the diagnostic tools to get a positive ID for the SOD organism. Marianne, were you gonna say something?
No,
Okay.
no, yeah.
The time to use the agrifos is now.
Yes.
Yeah. I mean,
And if it's a small tree, I think smaller than 25 inches in diameter, maybe. You can spray the bark with the Pentra, I forget,
now it's
the surfactant.
Yeah.
But if there are no bay trees in the vicinity,
You shouldn't.
then there is no need, right?
Well, it depends on how well the oldest tree, because there are other agents, like 180 of them, that can give you salt. Not only the base.
Okay.
Right.
To think
Right.
about it.
Poison oak?
Poison oak. Oh, get going. No.
Yeah, the only problem is that these others usually don't die.
Yeah. Well, I asked him about that tan oaks because, they say it's 100% mortality, but so we don't have any tan oaks on our property anymore, but we have a lot of tan oak shrubs. And I asked him and he said that the organism does girdle the tree. So it'll kill the tree, doesn't necessarily kill the plant.
Mhm.
So you can get shrubbies back, but. Yeah. Okay, kudos.
Yeah, actually, as some of you might know, I have not put out the Trichia yet, but I will this weekend. And I'll just use it because I have the microphone. Stanford has done a terrific job removing a terrible Trichia infestation at the horse putty between the freeway and Alpine Road and Slack. However, they have done a minimal job on the dish, and they have done absolutely nothing on the long new pipeline that they have put in from the Alpine entrance of the dish all the way down to Felt Lake, which
Oh.
goes along the 280 freeway,
Yeah.
which is
For
totally
some reason, we
infested.
can't hear you.
Which is totally infested, the whole pipeline that was put in the last 2 years. And they said they would do it and they didn't. And now, of course, it's too late, which means if we have an easterly wind, thousands of seeds will be sent across the freeway into the open space west of 280, which eventually will come to us. So that is quite irresponsible by Stanford, because they said they would clear the dish and they did not. I just wanted to bring that up. I mean, there's nothing we can do.
Yeah.
Maybe Nona knows some people.
As you know, now all.
We
horses
cannot
are
hear.
off the farm.
Dieter, can you speak into the microphone? Is it on? Yeah. Go. Okay,
Yeah,
good.
now all horses have left. the
Absolutely,
farm.
absolutely.
All the seeds are already gone.
I know.
It has to be again next year.
Yeah.
It's-
But that's going to be your kudos,
Did
right?
somebody turn the microphone off?
No.
Nobody is talking at the moment.
Okay, backyard habitat.
Backyard habitat, I'm still waiting for the new member. Is the new member going to be approved soon by you? Yeah, by it wasn't approved last month because,
It will be this month.
okay, so I'm waiting. And I just have a quick question, if I may, for Cyrene. I walked yesterday on the trail on Windy Hill when you're looking towards the sequoias. And that's where everything was cut a few years ago. And it actually looks absolutely barren and terrible. What is going on there? Is there any replanting happening? It's the trail that goes up from the parking lot to Windy Hill. The trail is on, if you look up, it's on the left side and Sequoias is on the right side. It's the Sequoia Trail, Sorry to put you on the spot, but you're here.
He comes back.
The Sequoia, so they used goats to come in to create to get the understory cleared out because of fire. So it has been quite stripped. And to prevent the fire at the request of the fire marshal. And of course, in terms of habitat, the number of birds we have is plummeted because you don't have the understory layer. Sequoia is a little bit between a rock and a hard place. You know, it was designed 50 years ago with Japonicus against the buildings. And so we're kind of waiting. I'm here listening and attend the wildfire meetings religiously, because we're waiting for the other shoe to drop to figure out what the heck we can or have to do. And so kind of to do anything when you don't know what the rules are going to be next month.
Yeah, but this is a complete hillside and it's not that close to the building. I mean, there could be, you could put some oak trees in, for example.
At the present time, we're not going to put anything in. I don't think. I don't speak for Sequoia. I'm a resident. I have no
I was just
zero
curious.
zero
Yeah,
authority.
yeah.
But
Okay.
basically, until we know what the rules are and get the fire marshal back there and come up with a plan for what we're going to do with the whole campus.
Well, thank you. That's very helpful. I didn't know you had goats there this year. Interesting. Expensive. I hope they ate all the thistles.
Okay, recommendations for tip of the month. I did culverts, clearing culverts last month.
Sowing wildflowers?
Hmm?
Sowing wildflowers?
Sowing wildflowers is a great idea. Excellent. Okay. And then what's blooming now? So I did the berries. We can skip a month and we're starting again in January. So I don't have any problem with skipping a month. Okay.
You've done Choyon a number of times and the Choyons are all in fruit now. And I was just sort of reflecting on what Selena just said about no birds, because if you don't have berries, you don't have birds. So I don't know, something about like coffee berries.
Berries. You did. I did berries, but
Did
Yeah.
we do toyons? Did we do toyons?
Choyons last year, I think.
I can do I think I have a separate one on Toyon.
You could do toyons and coffee berries. You could do them together. I mean, they are at different times. but-
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay.
Toyon right
You
now
could do-
is the best it's been in many
Yeah.
decades.
Yeah.
Many.
Yeah.
The toyons are terrific,
Yeah.
terrific.
And they will be there for a bit yet while they're still poisonous. And then about in December, we get a good sized rainstorm. And then the cedar waxwings and the robins, they all show up
Wow.
and they clean them out.
They
Clean them
sure
out.
do.
In 3 days.
Okay, that's great.
I think there was a comment on the internet.
Yes, Adana. You have a comment?
Hi, you guys. I was also going to suggest Coast Silk Tassel is starting to tassel, which is, it's always fun. Rather
is-
than,
Every
What?
time I think of silk tassel, it's too late. That's a great idea. Let me put that one down.
mine's just tasseling. And if you are going to recommend seeding now, tonight is the night to seed. So it's time to seed, but in January, it's not time to seed. And you guys, I didn't hear you cover this, the backyard habitat. Did you talk about that tonight? I thought
Yes,
it was on your
it's-
agenda. Okay.
it's on hold until Nancy joins the committee in January.
Okay, because I have a couple of people who I think should win.
Excellent.
Can,
Okay.
Dana, could you send me an email with those addresses?
Sure.
Oh, great. Thank you.
Perfect. That's great. It would be good to reinvigorate that. And I think that could be part of the website invigoration. Okay. All right.
I
and
was
then-
just going to say about Toyon,
Yes.
that Hollywood
Yes.
is in, so that is a nice segue into the Christmas season, the holiday season.
It sure is. Yeah.
No?
And there's,
Oh, am I gonna present that? as a
you're
member of
gonna
the-
just, yeah, just,
Am I allowed to say something? Oh,
yeah,
why not?
why
Right.
not? Go for it.
You're the boss.
Yeah.
Okay, well, it came to my attention that Woodside has a wildflower fund, which specifically raises money around the bringing back of wildflowers into the public spaces that they hold. And it seemed like a nice solution to buffer a little of the financial instability we have with the budget, to actually have the wildflowers have their own fund to maintain their health. And I just thought conservation was the place it should be considered.
So just so you know, Mary, we actually have sowed wildflower seeds. We've gone out a few times at Springdown and tried to take out invasives and put out seeds for lupins and tiny tips and things like that. So, and I believe you also did a really nice job with the poppies a few years ago. So there has been precedent. So it's a good time to think about doing it again.
Yeah, it used to be money that Public Works had from the budget, the seed bags. It's not that much money. Yeah. The thing,
It would be nice to have it not competing with everything else.
it's a nice idea. Yeah, it's a very nice idea.
Yeah, we should definitely think about that. I mean, you know, one of the things that was brought up a couple of months ago is refreshing our demonstration garden, our native demonstration
Yeah.
garden. And obviously there's no money for that, but maybe some wildflower stuff can help perk it up a little bit at least. And
The Capsinel Garden, yep, yep.
So Mary, are there any requirements to trying to get public contributions for something like a wildflower fund that we need to be aware of as a committee? I don't
I think
know.
we have asked that question before. We have asked that question
Okay.
because we were thinking of getting money for something else.
My only thought would be to suggest it to me even, and that I would suggest it to somebody and then I would find out what the restrictions are as we're facing this budget thing. So
It would certainly have to be something the town approves. Clearly.
Because
Right.
it's a separate fund.
Yeah.
yeah. No.
Well, thank you for the idea. Thank you, Mary. Keep the ideas coming.
I seem to remember that a few years ago, we were putting together lists of things that people could contribute to the town. There was these sort of small funds, 10,000 for this.
There
and
was the
10
PV Cares
Oh,
thing that
yes.
Jeremy did,
And
but I don't
yes.
know what
something like
happened
a-
to that.
a
What happened to
wildflower-
that?
Oh, but something like a wildflower fund, that's not that much money. And it might
Exactly.
be something that people would want to
Yeah.
contribute to. I don't know. It just seems that on the grand scale of things,
Mm-hmm.
it's smaller than a lot of things we worry about in terms
A-
of
And
expense.
it could become a community thing where the Boy Scouts go out putting poppy seeds in, or you could build on that.
Good. Keep talking about it.
But then we also have to have money for weeding every year. If
Well,
we don't
so-
think of that, it's not worth doing.
Right. Okay.
Maintenance. Yep.
Christy Corley has a question. She has her hand up. Christy?
Oh, yeah, I was just, came in a bit late, so maybe I missed it. I was wondering if anyone gave a summary of the 10/26 Hawthorne meeting and updated the committee. And then I'd liked to hear you talk about the wildlife fencing because that will come into play at that site. I'm concerned about the eucalyptus on Los Trancos Creek. As we know, we lost somebody last year to that. And my one tree that I'm concerned with, and I've written letters, is if you're going east on Alpine and you turn right on Arrestadero, on the left inside the fence and a little bit outside the fence. So it's Alpine and Arrestadero on the left. There's some eucalyptus that looks like the roots are in the water, can get in the water when, if we have an El Nino year with Los Trancos Creek. It really did happen last year. So how can this committee be keeping their eyes open for when the creek, well, I'm more
So-
preventive.
I think
So-
if you see things like that, it's really important that you put in a PV Connect to put it to the right in front of the right set of eyes, because it's not part of our mandate. You know, we're certainly happy to provide guidance, but we can't, we can't. So I think those kinds of things are really best handled by doing PV Connect.
Okay, and then the Hawthorne, you went real quick. I'm wondering what your goals are with that and when you'll be commenting.
So we didn't have, Hawthorne's is not on the agenda this today, so we didn't cover it. And we will probably talk about it at the next meeting, but it's not on the agenda.
But wasn't it part of a meeting summary of a person that's assigned to Hawthorne?
It was not on the agenda.
Okay. I think it's of interest to the residents, that's all.
There's a lot of more effective sources of information than the Conservation Committee, but we understand the concerns. So. Okay. Unless there's anything else.
I'd just like to point out that there's an error on the agenda. Our next scheduled meeting is probably not December 26th because
dang.
we normally actually, December
skip
is a non-meeting month.
Good.
So I think our next meeting is actually January of 2024.
Good.
Which means we probably should just have a show of hands if anybody is planning to leave the committee. So we know this before January. I don't think anybody is planning to leave, but usually
Yeah.
these housekeeping things that are done in the old year, not in the new year.
Yes, yes. When are we ready for new, is that our new chair elections, is that the beginning of the year or is that in?
We have to look up,
I'll have
look
to
it
look
up,
that
look it
up.
up. It
I'll
must
have-
be.
Right now?
Yeah, I thought
Okay.
it's usually in the December, and so it should have been on this agenda. Yeah.
I'm happy to continue as chair, so.
So there we go.
That doesn't have to be an
So no
argument.
issue.
Okay. All right. Meeting adjourned. 8:32. Okay. All right. Well, thanks for joining, everyone. Well, none. I mean,